Before beginning the DiskProtect installation, uninstall any third-party encryption software. Third-party encryption software will prevent DiskProtect from booting properly and will leave the computer inaccessible. Encryption of the hard drive does not delete existing data, but it is recommended that existing data is backed up prior to installation. You may prefer to perform a full system backup. If you are installing DiskProtect on a machine with multiple hard drives, the additional hard drive must first be prepared for the installation. Consult the DiskProtect admin guide for instructions. This tutorial is not intended to replace the documentation that was included with the DiskProtect download file. Please consult the documentation for a more detailed description of the installation process. After purchasing DiskProtect, you will receive 2 emails from Becrypt. One email contains your DiskProtect product key, and the other email contains a link to download DiskProtect. Check your spam filter or junk email folder if you do not receive the emails. Click on the DiskProtect download link to begin downloading. If you did not specify a location, the downloaded file will be located in the Downloads folder. Right-click on the DiskProtect zip archive and select Extract All. Click Extract to extract the file. DiskProtect documentation is included within the documentation folder. The DiskProtect install file is located within the DiskProtect folder. You will find install files for both 32-bit and 64-bit architectures. Double-click on the appropriate installer file for your system architecture. The DiskProtect Setup Wizard displays the Welcome dialog. Click Next. Accept the end-user license agreement and click Next. Because I am performing a standalone installation, I will choose not to register with the Becrypt Enterprise Manager. Click Next. Enter the DiskProtect product key that was included in the email from Becrypt and click Next. Use the Language drop-down box to select the appropriate language and click Next. Leave the default setup type and click Next. Click on Install. If you are prompted to allow the app to make changes to your PC, click on Yes. The DiskProtect Setup Wizard will guide you through the setup process. Click on Next. Password-only authentication is the only possible selection. Click Next. Removable media encryption is not a requirement for most organizations. To find out if it is a requirement, consult the proper resource within your organization. We will choose to leave removable media encryption disabled. Click Next. The default password policy is set to a minimum of 8 characters, including 1 uppercase, 1 numeric, and 1 special character. The password history policy determines the required number of unique new passwords used before a password can be reused. The default setting is set to 5. Modify the settings to adhere to your company's password policy and click Next. Set the maximum number of boot time password entry attempts permitted. This specifies the number of times the user may attempt to enter the correct password before DiskProtect either displays access denied and must be rebooted to allow further attempts, or enters device recovery mode and can be unlocked with assistance from an administrator. If Enforce Maximum Password Lifetime is enabled, the user will be prompted to change his or her password after the specified period has expired. The default setting is 90 days. Enabling device recovery is imperative in the event that a password is forgotten. Without device recovery, the computer will remain inaccessible if a password is forgotten. It is highly recommended that this setting is enabled. Adjust the settings to best fit your organization's requirements and click Next. Select 128-bit or 256-bit encryption. In most cases, 128-bit encryption is adequate to meet compliance standards. Check with the appropriate resource within your organization to determine your organization's policy. Select the appropriate setting and click Next. Click on Add User to create a DiskProtect user. The installer displays the User Credentials dialog box. The first user created is by default a DiskProtect administrator. A DiskProtect administrator can perform administrative tasks such as adding and removing DiskProtect users, resetting user passwords, enabling single sign-on, modifying the password policy, and decommissioning the computer. Enter the DiskProtect username. Enter and confirm an initial password and click on Add User. Remember, the password must conform to the password policy that was specified earlier. The username and password that is created will be required to access the system during the DiskProtect pre-boot process. Optionally, you may choose to check Users Must Change Password on next logon. Click on Add User. You can create up to 25 additional DiskProtect users. Additional users can be a DiskProtect administrator or a standard DiskProtect user. A standard user does not have access to administrative tasks. Once users have been added, click on Next. Single sign-on synchronizes the DiskProtect username and password with the user's Windows credentials. When single sign-on is enabled, the user will enter his or her Windows credentials during the DiskProtect pre-boot process. DiskProtect will then automatically log the user into Windows, eliminating the need to authenticate a second time. If this option is disabled, the user will be required to authenticate both during the DiskProtect pre-boot authorization as well as during the Windows logon process. If you wish to enable single sign-on, place a check in the Enable checkbox. If you have multiple users, you can turn single sign-on on or off on a per-user basis by selecting the user and clicking on the Enable or Disable button. Click Next. To select a different keyboard layout type, use the Keyboard Layout drop-down menu. To enable pre-boot sound support, place a check in the corresponding checkbox. This option aids in accessibility by providing audible equivalents of the visual prompts. The graphical authentication screen is enabled by default. If disabled, the pre-boot screen will display a simplified graphical mode, and the option to enable touchscreen support will be unavailable. Pre-boot touchscreen support is enabled by default. This option offers the user the ability to enter his or her username and password using a touchscreen keyboard during the pre-boot authentication process. Because my device is not touchscreen enabled, I will uncheck the Enable Touchscreen option. Click on Next once you have customized the settings to best fit your requirements. Since we have enabled device recovery in a previous step, it is now time to create the DiskProtect recovery file. The recovery file is crucial when recovering a computer in the event that a password is forgotten. If a password is forgotten, it is important to note that without a recovery file, the machine will remain inaccessible. Click on the Save As button. Give the recovery file a logical name. Choose a location to save the file. I will choose to save it on the desktop. Click Save. If you are installing DiskProtect on multiple clients, you might wish to enter an identifier, which helps to identify which system the recovery file is associated with. Click Next when you are finished. Click Next again. Click Finish, and click on Restart Now. After the first reboot, you will notice that DiskProtect is now installing the pre-boot authentication. The user will be required to authenticate with DiskProtect the next time the computer is rebooted. We will now copy the DiskProtect recovery file to a location that is accessible in the event that a password is forgotten. Without a recovery file, the computer will remain inaccessible if a password is forgotten. Hence, this step is extremely important. A method that I prefer is to email the recovery file to myself using an externally accessible email account, such as Gmail or Yahoo. The recovery file will then be available to me as long as I have an internet connection. Another option is to copy the file to cloud storage, such as Dropbox or OneDrive. The important thing is that the file is accessible in the event that I am unable to access my computer. Now that the recovery file has been copied to an external location, I can now delete it from my hard drive. I will need to reboot the system for a second time to complete the installation. DiskProtect presents the pre-boot authentication screen. I am now required to enter the DiskProtect username and password that I created in a previous step. Since I have not yet synchronized my DiskProtect and Windows user accounts, I will be required to log on using my Windows username and password. Once logged into Windows, DiskProtect will prompt me to activate my DiskProtect license. Click Next. The next screen presents the different activation methods. I will choose to activate DiskProtect online. If I do not have an internet connection currently, I could choose to activate offline, or activate later when my internet connectivity is reestablished. If I choose to activate offline, I will need to contact Becrypt to receive an offline activation code. If I choose to activate later, DiskProtect will operate in trial mode for the next 30 days. Choose the appropriate selection and click Next. I can connect to the activation server using either a direct internet connection or I can connect through an internet proxy if a proxy server is managing my internet connection. Make the appropriate selection and click on Next. DiskProtect confirms that the license activation was successful. Click on OK. I am now notified that DiskProtect has started the encryption process. Click on Finish. Since I have enabled single sign-on, I will be prompted to synchronize my DiskProtect and Windows user accounts. Enter the passwords for both your DiskProtect and Windows user accounts and click on Synchronize Passwords. Click on Yes to confirm the password synchronization. DiskProtect informs me that the password synchronization was successful. Click on OK. From this point forward, I will enter my Windows password into the DiskProtect authentication screen, and DiskProtect will automatically log me directly into Windows using the same password. I can check the progress of the disk encryption process by clicking on the system tray, right-clicking on the Becrypt icon, and selecting Open DiskProtect Management Tool. If User Account Control asks if I want to allow the app to make changes to my PC, click Yes. Once the Management tool is open, click on the Encryption Status tab. The Management tool displays the encryption status and provides an estimated time for completion. The status will display Encryption Complete once the process has completed. This concludes the installation tutorial. Please consult the documentation for a complete description of the available configuration settings and administrative tasks.